Welcome to the Search and Select Recruitment podcast, discussing anything from writing CVs all the way to how to approach a job interview and much more.
So today I thought I would take the opportunity to go through the Isle of Man worker visa process, and I'd like to do that from both an employer and an employee point of view. We have spent some time with our contacts at Locate to help us understand that process so that we can then help to dispel some of the myths or perhaps the stigma that still applies around that process potentially. What I would say is that it is just that. It is a process, it's a procedure, and once you've got it nailed, you will find the right people for your roles, and hopefully I can chat you through how that can be done. So the worker migrant visa enables an Isle of Man employer to recruit and retain non-British and non-Irish employees for a specific vacancy that maybe can't be filled by a suitable settled worker. An application under this route has to be supported by a valid confirmation of employment, and that's provided by the Isle of Man employer. So that confirmation of employment, you'll probably hear it referred to a lot as a COE, is a document that's issued to the Isle of Man employer wishing to employ and retain that person who is not classed as a settled worker. An employee who's not a settled worker must have that valid COE, which has been issued by the Isle of Man Immigration Service to work in the Isle of Man. So it must be applied for by the employer on behalf of the employee before they start a new job and before the employee can make an application for their visa, for their entry clearance, or to extend their leave to remain in the Isle of Man. There's no fee charged for the application for the COE. So from an employer's point of view, you're going to go through your normal standard recruitment process. You may receive CVs from settled workers. You may receive CVs from those that are classed as overseas applicants. You will shortlist, you will do your interviews. If during that process, the right person for the job, because it could be a specific skill you're looking for, is that overseas applicant, you want to check the role that you're looking to recruit into is listed under the current immigration rules. There is something called SOC codes, and that basically shows you what the salary should meet for that type of role. And you just have to make sure that the offer you're making meets or exceeds that. Make sure the contracted working hours are at least 30 hours a week. And then you'll go through the process of completing the form. If you haven't done it before, there's some things an employer should be aware of. You should be an Isle of Man employer on Companies Registry, have a current corporate bank account, and be subject to Isle of Man taxation and registered with the Isle of Man Treasury as an employer. So that's for both tax and NI. And you can't be a sole employer. If you've been through that process, you just have to include with your application for the COE, make sure it's on heady paper, make sure the full name, the date of birth and the address of the prospective employee that you're offering is on there. Show the employment title, list the duties to be carried out, make sure you show that SOC code, and that's a standard occupation classification. Show the proposed start date, show the proposed period of employment, and show the gross annual salary. And again, make sure that salary meets the requirement. And if there are any additional benefits, make sure they are declared. So you've got all your details, all your documentation, you've got the offer ready, and you submit that confirmation of employment application. Once it's accepted and successful, it will be stamped and emailed back to the employer, who then provide it to their employee to let them start their visa process. Now, from an employee's perspective, you've seen a role advertised in Isle of Man. We will always recommend to any potential candidate that we get into discussion with that they understand the visa requirements. So they do their research. So that can be research the process. What can you do in advance to get yourself visa ready? And there are some steps you can take. But probably the key thing is if you haven't been to the island, it's a big move, it's a big commitment. So make sure you've researched what it means to live and work on the island. So cost of living, accommodation, transport, Schools, if that's relevant. If you've got pets, can you get accommodation that will allow a pet? So there's a lot you can do before you take that step, because it's great having the dream role, but you need to make sure the location is right for you. If you find that role and you are interviewed by an Isle of Man employer and you get that offer, you must apply for your entry clearance. And that has to be granted before you arrive in the Isle of Man. To qualify, there are certain requirements, and you should satisfy yourself that you meet those relevant requirements. All of this will be on the Isle of Man immigration rules on the government website, and the applicant will have to provide that valid confirmation of employment that I talked about before with their visa application. So the visa application itself is online, and there is like a funnel where you pick the type of visa you're looking for. The main one, as I say, for the Isle of Man is the worker migrant. There is guidance on it. You complete the online application. You have to attend a biometric appointment in your country. You also have to supply evidence of meeting the English language requirements. There's some codes on that, and B1 is the standard you have to meet for entry clearance. You'll have to provide your confirmation of employment, evidence of maintenance funds. So if the employer is not going to do the relocation package, and some will, some won't, just make sure that you're able to state that you've got enough funds, you've got your passport, any other documentation. Once your application is assessed, hopefully granted and released, you will get an email back and you collect all your documentation and you start your process of actually moving. Now that would be if you're outside the UK. Slightly different if you're in the UK. There's still an application form to be found online. You still provide evidence of meeting the English requirements, and it's still B1 for leave to remain because you'll already be in the UK. You have some sort of visa, so you're looking to amend that to a migrant worker visa, which will include looking for leave to remain. Again, you have to show the evidence that you meet the maintenance requirements, your passport, and any other supporting documentation. You will still need your certificate, your certification of employment offer. And again, once the application has been assessed and granted, you get an email to confirm and you collect your documentation. If you're already in the Isle of Man and you have a migrant working visa, but you're looking to change employer, that can be done. Your new employer simply goes through the COE application. Once it's issued and it's been through the process, the employee can commence working with the new employer. There are links online to find where the secure English language test centres are. There's also links online of where the visa application centres are. And you can also find where your local biometric centre is for that appointment. So, as I say, it is a process. The biggest thing for an employer and employee is to do the research. Make sure from an employer's point of view, do you meet the requirements to be able to bring in an employee from outside the UK who's not classed as a settled worker. But it is a process, and once you've done it once, it does get easier. There are great skills out there. We see some great CVs, and there's a bit of fear around this process. I would say any questions, first point of contact, ring the immigration department. Yeah, they are really, really helpful. Now, they may not answer your query straight away. They usually have about a 10-day turnaround, but always approach them first. If you have a role that you're advertising and you know the skills are going to be difficult to find on the island, don't limit yourself to just the UK. Think further afield. And from an employee point of view, make sure that if you are considering the Isle of Man as your home and where you're going to grow your career, do the research. It pays off. Do as much as you can to get yourself visa ready, and hopefully by following the process we can welcome new employees to the island, get the skill set up to where we need it, and fill those roles that are sometimes hard to find the right person. As an employment agency and a recruitment agency, we are happy to support clients and candidates and talk them through this process and provide any links, any information that we can to make it as easy as possible so that you find the right person for the right role.